so that anyone who is not able to join us today can see it afterwards. So I see now that my colleague has started the recording. Thank you very much for that, Veronica. And I will thus start the presentation. My name is Cecilia Torfin, and I work as Team Leader Communications in the representation. And I'm going to walk you through this today. Let's see now if So the ground I want to cover in this presentation is to present ourselves a little bit, the representation of the European Commission in Sweden, tell us who we are, what we do, so that you can place this call for tender a bit in a context. Obviously also tell you about the key elements of the tender, the services we are looking to buy, how the application process is working, and the information we will require from tenderers who are interested to apply. As well as the award criteria and the method, and a bit the timeline ahead. And like I just mentioned, we are recording the presentation for later publication, so you can always go back and revisit anything. And obviously all the information is also in the documents we have published on e-tendering. I also want to say that in contrast to digital conferencing, we will not allow any questions in this webinar, and this is for reasons of giving everybody the same chance to ask questions, and that will happen exclusively via the e-tendering platform. There is a Q&A possibility there, and all the questions that you ask for clarification during the procedure will be public there, and also the answers that we give. So everyone gets the same answers and know which questions were asked. So first, a little bit about us. We are thus the contracting authority, the European Commission representation in Sweden. We are part of the Director General for Communication of the Commission, and that means that we represent the entire Commission. So we represent all policy areas, and we support the President of the Commission as well as all the different college members and the different line DGs that cover different policy areas or activities. We are located in Stockholm, where we have an office centrally located, but our area is all of Sweden. So we also really strive to reach out and go out to other parts of Sweden, and digital communication is a very good way for us to ensure that we don't just stay in the capital. We have a threefold assignment. We are the eyes and the ears of the Commission in Sweden. That means that we have an assignment to analyze and report on the political and economic and social developments in Sweden on an ongoing basis, and these reports then go to headquarters. We also reach out to different actors at all levels in society, political as well as non-governmental and in the private sector, to promote a political dialogue between the European Commission and those actors. And a big part of that is to organize visits for high-level officials and commissioners who come here to Sweden, not least, of course, in this first half year of 2023, when Sweden holds the EU presidency, but this is an ongoing mandate that we have. We also are the voice of the European Commission in Sweden, and that means that on one hand, we explain the positions of the European Commission, and this happens a lot through press and media. We also use social media accounts for this. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube are the channels we have active at the moment. And we have a website, which is part of the big European Commission website, but we have our own sub-site there. And we also issue a newsletter by email on subscription. And we undertake a number of activities to try to initiate a broad dialogue and increase also the knowledge about the EU in general. So not just about the Commission, but also, of course, about how the European Union works and the different processes that leads to especially when on the topics which are of special interest in Sweden. And here we do events. We have our own meeting facilities here in Europe House, where we are located in Stockholm, but we also organize events on other locations, not only in Stockholm, but also several here. We run a program for training teachers in EU affairs. We've been doing that for about 10 years. And that concretely means that we try to find 30 teachers every year that we can educate a bit, bring to Brussels, take them on a study trip, and then we keep in touch with them and we empower them to work with EU matters in their teaching to secondaries pupils mainly. We also reach out to stakeholders to network with them. I was already talking about it in terms of building political dialogue, but we also try to do that in a broader sense. And we organize study trips to Brussels also for other groups and teachers. And like I said, digital communication is a big part of this. And we have a podcast. We have paused it for a while because we didn't have a production company, but we have a podcast that we used to publish one episode every month. We also support so-called Europe Direct offices. We have 15 of them spread out all over Sweden from north to south, and they get grants from us to then act as a local focal point for European affairs. And in 2023, we are also undertaking 2 new things in the area of communication. And one big part of that is that we have made it possible to apply for grants for communication activities. And we're also supporting an interactive exhibition in the Cultural Center of Kulturhuset in Stockholm that is called Experience Europe. And we do this together with the partners in the European Parliament. So that's a little bit about us. And you can, of course, check our website and our social media feeds and other things too, if you want to get more of an idea of what we're doing and how we're communicating publicly at the moment. So now then, this call for tender for digital communication services. We are looking to conclude a single framework contract with one contractor, and it's going to have a maximum duration of 48 months. And we have the possibility to buy services under this contract to a total value accumulated over the whole period of 775,000 euros. We have already published all the tender documents in e-tendering. The link is available on our website, also, of course, in the e-tendering platform. And as these things go, submission and correspondence has to happen now exclusively via this e-tendering platform. The final submission date is 1st of June 2023. I think it is at 1600 hours, but I have that also on my last slide. And I want to be clear that we're going to award this tender with the best price quality ratio. So that's also why we have clear award criteria, which are going to make it possible for us to assess the quality of tenderers. And we envisage a rolling implementation with quarterly purchase orders because, of course, a framework contract works like that. We have a global agreement with a maximum time and a ceiling, and then we're going to proceed to decide as we go along on what we actually need and what we buy from the agreed services from the company that we have concluded a framework contract with. So then, what kind of services are we looking for? We have actually we have specified them quite in detail, and you can divide those into different categories, and you will find them in section 142 of the technical specifications. So to summarize these, we have the first category is that we want strategic advice, and that will be on one part an annual assessment of the overall performance of our social media channels and our digital communication so that we can adapt. We do an annual strategy and an annual action plan. And to make that evidence-based, of course, we need to understand how things are working that we are doing. It may also be that we will order advice on how we can improve engagement with a specific target audience. That target audience will then, of course, depend on our objective in a certain year. And in this category, we have also the possibility to order social media plans for large events and campaigns. And this will then not only be advice and analysis, but also, let's say, ideas on how to do the content, how to do the promotion, the live engagement and post-event follow-up. And I think we are likely to want to do something like that about 3 times a year. Could be related, for instance, to our presence at big political festivals like the festival Almedalen. Could be around Europe Day, where we also, of course, reach out to a general audience, or it could be on a certain theme, or it could be linked to a campaign that is initiated from headquarters. We would also like to understand really well what the results are of paid promotion on social media channels. So to the extent that we engage in social media advertising, we also would like to have the possibility to purchase an analysis of that on likely a monthly basis. Then we have the next 3 categories of service that we want to have support with. One of them is editorial services. There we are looking for support to write web texts based on input that we will give. So there's no research involved here really, but to translate that into texts that we can easily publish on our website, and also to draft posts for social media campaigns. We are not looking here really for for posts on our daily social media news stream, because that we will continue to cover ourselves. So these are really social media posts related to the campaigns I mentioned in the previous slide. We may also want to have some support with social media monitoring. So here we're really more on the listening side, to work, get some automated report, or let's say a report based on an automated system, keyword based, so that we can get an idea of what is the conversation in Sweden on social media on topics that are really important to us. And it could be that we also will order then social media monitoring reports on a special topic now when there's definitely conversation happening in that space that we need to maybe take into account in our political reporting or in our press and media outreach. The next category is advertising. So production and placement of sponsored posts and online advertising, including banners and ads. And I want to be clear here, and I have that on another slide as well, that here it's not about the cost, of course, of placing these, but it's actually the support to select the right channel and to manage the posting. So the costs for the actual placement of the advertising would be outside of this contract. We also have an instruction to start working with social media influencers from headquarters, and that means that we would like to have the possibility to buy the support from the contractor to make a marketing plan. We may have a specific theme that we want to work on particularly, where we need to simply identify and find the key influencers, and then also need support in overseeing and reporting on the implementation of a potential agreement between the representation and such a social media influencer. And again, here, any costs that would be, let's say, related to actually reimbursing this social media influencer for his or her engagement, that is not part of the contract. So it's really the management, the identification and the management of the relationship. Next block is about graphic design, illustrations, and stock photography. We need support with the production of infographics and visualizations and illustrations, branding materials for online publication, and these need to be in Swedish because all our outreach is exclusively in Swedish. This goes, by the way, also for the editorial services I mentioned earlier. Our website and all our social media conversation is in Swedish because our assignment is to, let's say, communicate in a localized way. They call it from headquarters. So it is really about talking to a Swedish audience in a way that is easily understood here. We will likely also regularly need stock photo. Next category, video production. We would like to be able to order the production of short videos, subtitled in Swedish, from an event, for example, or maybe to promote an event. And then we are looking really for the A to Z support here with scripting to production. And we also very regularly stream and publish recordings of our events. And there we need help with editing of those. So that's, let's say, the most simple form of editing with an intro, outro, and nameplates, maybe some minor trimming if we have long silences, for example, in such a event. They are usually between 1 and 3 hours long. So they're quite long, these recordings. So it's not about, let's say, going down to the last detail of everything, but just making it a bit easier to watch. And then to split a longer recording in separate recordings of items that we can then merge into a playlist, again, to make it a bit more easy to consume for somebody watching it afterwards on YouTube. We would like to start our podcast again. It's called Vårt Europa. You find more information about it also in the tender documents. And here we need support with scripting, production, and editing of episodes, around 30 minutes each. The moderation is not part of this contract, that we will manage in another way. And we are looking for doing about 9 episodes per year. And finally, because this is, of course, a contract that is supposed to be our framework for working together with the provider for 4 years, we have also put in here the possibility to agree on other communication services that fall under the scope of this type of work, and that we can then agree on an ongoing basis, on a case-by-case basis. So those were the services, and now a little bit about the process then of implementation. Like I mentioned, the framework contract actually means there is no commitment to the exact quantities and services to be ordered. And obviously we will not order all of this all the time. We will rather sit down with a contractor in the beginning of the year, go through our annual plans, and then agree on a rolling quarterly production plan. And this will then result in a purchase order, which of course is a firm commitment from our side that we place then for the services agreed. Then the order is confirmed and we work on that basis. It's important for us that the contractor has cleared all the obligations concerning copyrights so that we can use it on the platforms freely. And it's also important that there is a good understanding and respect of our visual identity charter, because since we are part and parcel of the European Commission, we need to make sure that everything we do is in line with the way we present the European Commission from its corporate identity perspective. It is an extramuros service, so we don't need personnel of the contractor to be here in our premises. We want this to be on an on-call basis, working from your office premises. And also, we will not provide any IT photo or video equipment. So it's also part of the information we need from the contractors on how you would solve this. And then the relationship, let's say, between the representation and the contractor is very clear when it comes to who's responsible for the content and the publication. We will validate all the content and we are also responsible for the publication. So we're really looking for a delivery according to the needs. And I think I mentioned also already that we will also provide background information for many of these things that need to be translated into text or video. The process to establish or go through now the tender procedure is the one you probably already know if you've participated in similar tenders before. You need to provide a number of elements in your offer, and we need to assess these different steps I have here on the slide. We need to know that the tenderer has access to the procurement. We need to verify administrative compliance and non-exclusion. We have a number of selection criteria related really to the company. And we also need to establish that minimum requirements will be met when it comes to applicable data protection and environmental and social law obligations in the EU. And then we have a number of award criteria, which are the ones we're going to use to assess the quality of the tender. And then we have a formula in the end where we have a weighting, and the price you offer would then account for 40% and the quality of your offer 60%. And I will now briefly go through each of these steps so that you know what we have put under each heading. So this is an open tender, which means that it's open to natural and legal persons in the EU as a whole, and also in third countries that have an agreement with the EU. So all of those types of entities are eligible. We welcome offers from sole tenderers, from sole economic operators, as well as from groups. So there can be a group tender, need to be then represented by a group leader. And it's also possible to subcontract if there is a tenderer who thinks not to have all the services in-house already. All of this needs to be very clearly defined in the tender so that we know from the beginning how the setup is intended to work. The administrative compliance is in the area of language. You need to submit a tender in one of the EU official languages, and it's very important that the documents are signed by the duly authorized representative of the tender. We also had to check that the tenderer doesn't fall under any of the exclusion situations, and I refer here on the slide to an article of the financial regulation, which says basically tenderers who are in a situation of bankruptcy or insolvency or have unpaid debts, etc., are not eligible to submit the tender. And this works through a declaration on honor, and we can also ask you to provide evidence on request that it is correct what you state. The selection criteria are customized for this tender. And we need here to know that the tenderer has economic, professional, and technical capacity enough to be a good partner to us. We have chosen to define economic capacity as an average yearly turnover in the last 2 years of 175,000 euros. And we would like to see evidence of at least 2 similar projects with a minimum value of 50,000 euros each. We need to know that you have the right people in your company, and that means that there needs to be project management with at least 3 years experience, and we need experts in both editing and social media marketing and graphic design, of course, video production. And we also put in a profile here for a sub-editor. And here we provide a standard format for providing CVs of the experts that you propose to use for the project. The technical capacities in the area of IT equipment, hardware, software, also having the right type of internet connection and the right photo and video equipment. And here we ask for a description. And you have a lot of detail on this in the tender documentation, exactly what we mean under each of these points. The technical offer then is also customized for this tender. We have a model for that provided in an annex, and there we are looking for samples. We have given you the reference to an EU issue, to the so-called Repower EU proposal. We provide a link with some background information there. You don't need to base yourself on any more than that. And then you can provide us with some samples in Swedish or in English. And there we are looking for a web text, a synopsis for a social media campaign, as well as for an explainer video and a podcast episode. We would also like you to describe how you plan to work with us. So what is the organization and the management of the work and the interaction with the representation, how that would work, the composition and organization of the team, and the quality control measures that you are envisaging to put in place, especially to ensure continuity of service over time. Also, the financial offer must be submitted using a certain model, and that you find in Annex 6, and the price needs to be quoted in euros. This is a fixed price, so it doesn't allow for any exchange rate fluctuations. I should mention that the contract can include an indexation clause over time, but the offer here needs to be fixed. And indexation is more linked to inflation, not to exchange rates. The offer needs to be free of all duties and taxes and all charges and free of VAT, because we don't pay VAT as the European Commission. And the prices need to be complete. So they need to be all inclusive, cover all the costs related to the performance of the contract. And we are asking for unit prices per type of service. The services I just explained we're looking for. So we are not asking for, say, hourly rates per type of expert or other forms of charges you may want to impose. So we really want you to think about what it costs for us to order a certain service. And it's important that you use this original price table. Otherwise, your bid could actually be declared null and void. And as I mentioned before, you don't need to include the placement of online advertisements in the contract. That can be reimbursed separately. So we're really looking for the price of your work. When we get as far as the quality award criteria, we will then look at these different elements of the samples you have provided. And as you can see, 4 of the 5 different quality award criteria actually relate to those. So we will look at them, and they can that you can get a maximum 20 points for each of these samples. You have detailed information in the tender documents on exactly what we want to see there in terms of scope and type, etc. So look carefully at that. And then we also will judge the proposal you make for quality measures to ensure the performance and the quality control. And then we apply the formula, and then we end up with a final score per tenderer. And then we need to award, of course, the tender to, or the contract to the tenderer that ranks first and has complied with all the different steps coming before the award evaluation, and is not in an exclusion situation. So the application process has already started. The call for tender is published in e-tendering. You have the link here. It's also available on our website. And all the procurement documents are there. It's quite a big bundle. Please consult these carefully. It's important to really grasp what is in there to be able to make a good bid. You can make requests for additional information or clarification, but you need then to go to the questions and answer tab on the e-tendering website and do these in writing. If you decide to participate in this procedure, then you need to register in the so-called participant register, and then you will get a PIC code, and this is a unique identifier. If you have already participated in tender procedures with the European Commission before, you already have one of those, and then you can use the identifier you already have. You need to submit your tender by 1st of June at 1600 hours. See, I remembered correctly. Via this application platform, and you will get then a submission receipt, which you can consult. And the signature can be a qualified electronic signature, or it can be handwritten. You also have detailed instructions in the documents on both of these options. And it's important that you submit a complete tender, because we can only ask clarifications for obvious clerical errors after the tender has been submitted after the deadline. Since this is an open tender, the opening of the tenders is actually public, so you can request to attend it here in our offices. So you need to let us know. That is specified in the invitation to tender how you do that. And then we will do our job, go through the evaluation process. And once we're done, we will notify the outcome of the award procedure by email. So this is it actually. And I hope it wasn't too much information in too short of a time. But like I said, we are recording this presentation, so you can always watch it again if need be. And you have much more detail on all these points I mentioned in the tender documentation. So I'm going to round off here now, and thank you very much for taking the time to listen to this webinar. And we really hope that we're going to get the chance to find a contractor that we can have a good working relationship with in the coming 4 years. And thank you in advance for considering to participate. Thank you very much. Bye bye.